For today's garden tips and tricks, we're going to talk about fall planting. So when you're thinking about planting fall crops, there's 3 things you want to think about: moisture, the maturity, time that you have left in your season, and when the cold comes and how you're going to protect them from the cold. One of the first things you want to do is to know your maturity time. And to do that, you want to know the first average frost date of your area. For Maine, where we are right now, it's the first light frost is what I would consider your first frost date, is the 3rd to 4th week of September. It varies every year. What I consider a light frost is, parts of your garden might get hit, and then usually 3 to 4 weeks later, from what I have observed, you get the killing frost, and that's when everything gets frost on it and everything croaks from there on out. So what you want to do is count back from your first frost date. So I would take the 3rd week of September and then count back the amount of weeks where you're at in your growing season now. So right now we have, 30, probably 50 days to plant stuff. So you can grow a lot in 50 days. So when you pick the crops that you're going to plant, you want to make sure the maturity days fits within the time frame that you have left to plant your fall garden. Here's some crops that can work for fall planting. You can do broccoli, cauliflower, kale, and mind you want to pick ones with shorter maturity. Beets. You can do shorter maturity carrots, kohlrabi, lettuce, spinach, arugula, mustard, and we have a lot of different greens. It's a fun time to experiment with varieties you haven't tried and kind of see what you can do in your garden. That's what gardening is all about, is experimenting, and that can change every year. One of the things that you really want to think about when you're planting at this time of year is the watering and keeping your seeds moist until they germinate. It tends to be a little bit hotter. So you want to water every day, maybe 2 times a day, depending where you live and how hot it is out. And then some of these crops you can start indoors if you have a little bit more time. You can start them like broccoli and cabbage and kale, maybe 2 to 3 weeks indoors, and then plant them out. Yeah. And then one of the things that helps with that is once they get going, and if it's still a little warm, you can mulch them. And mulching can be very important to retain that moisture of the new seedlings that are coming up. I like to plant beans about this time of year. And you have enough time to grow beans, but by time, at least in Maine, it's the 3rd to 4th week of September, you have a chance of a light frost. I'll watch the weather, and one of the best things that you can do, that I do, is I will put a row cover on top of it, like a fabric row cover, and I have extended my beans into that first killing frost, so into the 2nd week of October here in Maine, which I feel is pretty good. Other plants I would suggest that would benefit from row cover in the late part of the season would be peppers, lettuce, especially if there's a killing frost coming. You can do tomatoes too, but usually at that time of year, your tomatoes aren't really going to ripen too much because it's not hot enough, but it can help you keep green tomatoes on the plant if you like eating green tomatoes longer. And then some people even pull their entire tomato plant up and bring their plant inside and hang it upside down, and that can slowly ripen your tomatoes up too, so you'll have an extended period of tomatoes. Some people wrap them in newspaper and you set them separately by themselves, and those will slowly ripen the tomatoes. Another option for extending your harvest period would be cold frames. Those work very well. I mean, in Maine, you can grow until almost December with cold frames, and some people even do it longer than that. It just takes experimenting to figure out exactly what works best for you in your garden and in your little climate area that you're growing in. And remember, when you are planning your fall garden, to leave space for lots of garlic. I love garlic, and everybody should have it in their garden. If you don't, you need to.